spite of those security measures, they've been beaten. And sometimes security is not in your face, really, to be effective. Security is there watching over you like Big Brother and making sure that nothing goes wrong. So they won't see all of the things we're putting in place. We're working, we're developing new architecture around all of those public places. And I think the things that happen really are that in the places where we can take control, in the places where the mall owners and all of that, checking trucks that come in, who works where, and this is why identification of people is the first bastion of security. We must know everybody. Nobody can afford to be anonymous again. And again, I'm going to use this platform to insist and appeal that every resident in our state must register for the Lagos State Residence Registration Agency, have an ID card, have your biometrics taken. Because that's the first line of defense for us. We must know who walked through where. There is no security system that is foolproof globally. So when it's breached, we are able to track back and say who breached it, who should not be here, who was here. Now, that would happen in all of those malls and all of those things and all of those places. But what is more important is our own vigilance. Is there a bag next to you that you can't account for? Are we more now conscious about the dangers that items like nails, bolts and nuts, hydrogen peroxide, fertilizer, cables, batteries, the risks that they pose in making very improvised explosives?
Okay. Let me come in here because, we will talk about how they use the information available to them, the data collecting agencies, but tell us about the effectiveness of the security cameras, because yes, we do know they're there, but what these chaps will also try to do is to beat them.
The cameras have been effective, but you see, the camera is just a device that is dependent on studio. Okay? So take off the power. Will the cameras work? So until we have reliable equipment, most of this equipment are electricity dependent or energy dependent, either by solar or by regular alternating current electricity. So until we have that, the camera, but can you see what they are recording? You need a fiber optic connection to be able to see what all your cameras are seeing. And if you're recording into a server, for example, you need to keep that server in prompt use, in efficient maintenance. And power is critical to that. But that said, every mechanical or electrical device that man has made will break up. So what is the maintenance plan post-installation? Parts will get damaged, so they need to be replaced. They will get knocked down. Just as people knock down street light poles, we go back there to fix them. So it's no magic. So we need to integrate all of this together. It's a good first step, but it's not the end of the road. And it's not going to work as magic. And then people now have to sit down, glue their eyes to those cameras every day. Those are jobs. People must know what is unusual, what is usual, what to report, what not to report. With all of the best defense systems that the United States of America, which is a global world police, have put in place, their systems get defeated. Murtala got on the plane in spite of all the security intelligence they had on him. Boston was bombed in spite of all the information. What is important now, because they can go back to the information they have and track. And that is what
can we do that?
We can. So far. We can, limitedly. We can, limitedly. And that is why we need to be able to identify everybody. Because in the Boston case, for example, first of all, it was local police that started the work. Before the FBI came, they cordoned off the area. Before state police came, before the FBI, and they worked as a team. So if you have only one security architecture, the federal police, in the country, it will give all of its limitations. Today, many of the cases prosecuted by the police are dependent on confessions. So when the criminal doesn't confess, we're in trouble, oftentimes. So we need to develop that investigative power. It's not clairvoyance, it's hard, brutal work. People going out there, going to check and double check. We need to know as many people, if not everybody.
Okay, let me also bring in this because it's connected to this. I heard people say, yes, the registration agencies, you may mean well, but after you, who comes in and how do they handle those information? And that's where skepticism comes in. There was a case that came up. A police officer, I think the equipment that, was it Lagos State that gave to the police officers to use in checking the number plates of each car and know who is where, and how it was being deployed came into question because the police officer at that time just saw a car, punched in the data. I said, no, you bought this car from a certain pastor. The pastor had not done his registration at certain points, and so we're picking you up, and the reasons were just there. So how do we ensure that these are properly used?
You know the cliche that in every dozen of eggs you will have one bad one. The system must also be self-cleansing. If you have that larger workforce, you can't guarantee that everybody will do the right thing. But once those kind of incidents come up and they are brought to our attention, or indeed to the attention of any self-respecting government, it must go in quickly, clean out the system, take out the offending person, and subject the person to discipline. But that said, I think that in our enlightenment and in our freedoms, and they're very welcome freedoms, we're asking a lot of questions. What we must also be doing as we are asking questions is that as we assert our rights to ask questions and to do so many things, we must also take our duties and responsibilities more seriously. Of responsibility. And if citizens comply and register, you see, it provides a database to work with. Now, I can't guarantee that somebody entrusted to that data will not abuse it, but it does not obviate the need for the data. It doesn't obviate the necessity to keep it. Now, I'll give you an example. I don't remember which country it was. Somebody who was taking DNA samples, lots of DNA samples, and a lot of people ended up being convicted as a result, because DNA is as accurate enough as you can have in terms of human specimen and samples to say this was the person who. So they had to rescind convictions made, I think, in the last 15 years from when that person had been on that, and they had convicted loads of people. But the system went in to take that person out and assume that some injustice had been done to people convicted on the watch of that lady.
Yeah, but just quickly though, do you think they were putting laws in place? Do we have local laws to ensure that information collected is protected?
Oh yes, the Lagos State Residence Registration Law is a model that I will commend, because we did a lot of research, looked at what was obtainable across the continent where there were models like this. We looked at South Africa, we looked at India, we looked at some of the states in the United States where this kind of practice was obtainable, and we tried to build and domesticate some of the legislation that they have. Of course, every law is as good as what the people who sit down to debate its policy content is at the time they do so. Challenges that emerge in the next 10 years would necessitate that the next set of people should look at that law again and say, is this law behind today? And modify as we go on.